welcome to my review of Haikyuu chapter something I have forgotten. 220 something. But I forgot. It's in the title and you know because you read it. And it's not really important. What's important is what happened in this chapter. And I think overall this is it's again a very simple chapter. It's more of a transition than anything else because we're ending off the practice matches with Tateko, and we are now getting into preparing for the spring tournament. And I think I actually really enjoyed this chapter, despite the fact that the One Piece chapter really took a lot out of me. Like, I still have yet to do the live reactions for Shokugeki no Soma and Boku no Hero Academia, and I'm kind of waiting to do that because the One Piece chapter just hit me so hard that I'm just like, I need to distance myself. So I apologize if those will be up really late, but I do think I'll try to get them up today. But the Haikyuu chapter, either way, it was very fun for me, and yeah, I really liked it. Just quickly going into some of the points I really like. Kageyama getting Koganewa's name wrong, and something I figured out I also do because his name isn't actually Koganewa, it's Koganegawa, and I just call him Koganewa because I don't know where I got that from apparently, but calling him his name like completely weird and jumbled up in the characters, and then Tsukishima just being like, you're wrong, and I thought that was really funny. And Hinata and Aona's little bow, which just was so elaborate. I thought that was an amazing moment because that sums up their relationship perfectly in one panel. And then of course the third year trios from both schools just meeting and being intimidated by each other. I just thought that was a lot of fun because I read like a blog post once about the fact that other people see Karasuno very differently from what we the viewers do, because we are presented to them in this very comedic way at most times. Like, we know that they are awesome as hell, but we also see the things that like players from other schools don't see. Like, we've seen Hinata throw up on Tanaka's lap, and we've seen how Tanaka and Nishinoya completely lose themselves over girls, and we've seen when the dean's wig was blown off. Like, we've seen all the hilarious and ridiculous moments, but there are just instances where Karasuno, when they make an appearance and an impression on other schools, they can be very intimidating because they're not like, they're always dressed in black, which is one of the things that one of the Tateko third year points out, but they're also just like, they can be really fucking intimidating. There's this really one scene from the first season, the first time they go to Seijo, and you have that really dark and sinister frame of Kageyama, Tsukishima, Tanaka, and someone. Yamaguchi, I think it is. The four of them, and then the atmosphere is just like really, really dark, and the background is dark, and you hear crows, and I think you also see crows in the background, and they just, like, that's such an amazing moment. And I think that having other people to react to that kind of Karasuno, I always find that really funny, because they're being seen as these really intimidating guys, especially like a person that like us, because he looks so mature. So he always seems more intimidating than he actually is because he's a big wimpy loser. That came out wrong, but he's like a big dorky guy. I find that really funny and interesting. Either way, into the chapter, because I talk way too much about that. I really like that we get some exposition of Kageyama and Nishinoya and how they're good not only because they are geniuses and have natural ability, but because they strive to get better, and everything they do is just centered around exceeding their own limits. Because we first have Kageyama win Koganewa. I'm just gonna keep calling him that because I can't stop now. He asks Kageyama like, why you're such a good setter, why do you never tape up your fingers, why, like, I have so many injuries at this point and I just don't understand why you don't because you're so good. And Kageyama just goes into this like, yeah, well, it's because I make sure my nails are always perfectly trimmed, and I do push-ups on my fingers because just the tiny difference it makes from having tape on your fingers not is too much for me, because a part of Kageyama's whole thing is pinpoint, and that requires precise yeah, it requires precision. So I think that's really interesting. And of course we have the part with Nishinoya, where Kinoshita is like, well, you might not like the overhand that much, but if you could just excel at the underhand receive, then that should be fine, because you could be so good at that it doesn't really matter whether or not you can do the overhand. And then you just have this new being like, yeah, well, I thought that at some point, but I would just limit myself by not doing one of the basic things like doing the overhand. I wouldn't be able to set for the synchronized attack where they then have 5 people spiking the ball. He wouldn't be able to, of course, do the, like, probably and 100% surely receive the jump float serve, which can only really be handled with an overhand, and possibly a lot of other things that I'm forgetting. But I just think that's so interesting because I've said this so many times before, but Nishinoya is like the perfect player because he's just so good at what he does. Kageyama is that as well, but in a very different manner, because what his role is, his position kind of, it very funnily for me goes against how his personality is. But Nishinoya is like perfect personality-wise, ability-wise for his position. So every time I just see why it is that Nishinoya has become this way and how he can still somehow improve, I just really like that. Staying on the topic of Kinoshita, he has been getting a lot of spotlight lately to the point where I can remember his name, which is a really good thing. And he has been getting really good at the jump flow serve, and he is able to pinpoint where he wants his serve to go, something which Yamaguchi points out that is something that he could never do. But then Tsukishima points out that even still Yamaguchi is better than him, so his spot as a pinch server is not really being jeopardized here. But I think I want to go back to what I mentioned in the last chapter, and that is that when the third years eventually leave, there are open spots. We have 2 wing spikers who leave, and someone needs to fill in that gap. And at some point, Yamaguchi, I would love for him to be a regular in the startup line. Might not happen soon, but I think it'll be him and Kinoshita who will be competing for a spot, possibly. Because ultimately I do think that our main characters are the first years. I mean, of course it's like Hinata's the main character, then it's like Kageyama, then I think it's Tsukishima and Yamaguchi, and yeah, that's personally how I see it. But that might just be because I care more about the first years. But yeah, I really think that because Yamaguchi's, what his role is as a pinch server, it could potentially be taken by Kinoshita. Like, yes, Tsukishima did say that wouldn't happen because Yamaguchi's better, but Kinoshita could still improve, and I think that's kind of what this is leading up to, that he's getting out of whatever shell he's in and slowly starting to grow out of that and then become a better player that's not really afraid of improving. And when that happens, he either has to become a regular, because I think he's a wing spiker, and as I said, they lose to wing spikers whenever this tournament over, whenever they lose, because I still don't think they'll win. And he might have to like come in and do something, and yeah, he could become a regular, but we could also, like, depending on who's the better of the 2 of them, you could also make Yamaguchi a regular. And I really think, because ultimately I do think that at some point Hinata, I said this last time too, but I do think that Hinata will go back to being a wing spiker, and then we'll have Yamaguchi and Tsukishima as the middle blockers. But it depends on when that happens, because we also have Narita, who is the only middle blocker from the second year lineup. And I just find it really hard to believe that he'd be there if they weren't gonna use him. So yeah, it depends on how the lineup is gonna be. It could also just be that someone gets injured and then someone has to fill that place or something. I don't know. But I do think that we'll see more of Kinoshita soon, because it feels like we're not going into his character arc. This isn't the year of Kinoshita, but I think that we're getting at a point where we're learning more about the 2 second years we know nothing about, so Narita and Kinoshita. So yeah, Narita might be next. Then we also have the part with Hinata where he's at his house practicing by himself. And despite from everything that's going on, I just found that this reminded me a lot of Chihaya Furu. When Natsu came and said that it feels like Hinata and the ball is now are now friends, because before it seemed like they were strangers and they didn't really get along, but now it seems like they've bonded or whatever. And for you, those of you who watched or read Chihaya Furu, that's kind of like what Chihaya and the cards have or whatever. It's like making 100 friends. So I thought that was really, I really like that because I really enjoyed Chihaya Furu. So yeah, I need to get back on reading the manga of that. I'm like 10 chapters behind, but either way, it's not about Chihaya Furu. I just really like that because it shows how far Hinata's come, because he was really clumsy before. And there was a lot of things that he didn't know about, and just, yeah, he's improved a lot. I think I'm just gonna leave it at that. So the last thing I want to talk about, because that's the last thing that happened in this chapter, is the fact that Ukai seems to be wanting some video footage of the first team that they're supposed to be up against in the main tournament of the spring tournament. And the way that this was kind of set up makes me think that the team that the Karasuno is gonna go up against in the first round is a team that we already know of. And I'm just gonna put it out there, I don't think it's gonna be Nekoma, Fukurodani, or any of the teams that we met in the training camp arc. And I don't think it'll be Itachiyama either, because I feel like they've been hyped up so much that it would be too early for us to meet them. And also because I don't think Karasuno could win against them, and I think they will win the first couple of rounds, or however many rounds there are. Basically, I've never said this before, but basically what I think will go down in the spring tournament is that they'll get, Karasuno will get to either like the quarterfinals or just before the quarterfinals, and they'll meet Nekoma, and they'll lose to Nekoma, and then Nekoma either in the finals or the semi-finals will go up against Itachiyama and then lose to them, and Itachiyama will go on to win the entire thing. That's how I see it go down. I don't know where Fukurodani fits into all of this. They could also be the team that beats Nekoma, but they've already beaten Nekoma once, so I think that would just be a repeat. So I wouldn't want that. It would also be fun if Itachiyama just like beat Nekoma in the semi-finals and then beat Fukurodani in the finals or something. Because I want to see Bokuto and Akashi make it quite far in the tournament, because it's the last year they'll be playing together, and I'd just be really sad if they didn't make it all that far. It's the same with Kuro and Kenma, because both Bokuto and Kuro, they are third years, and their setters are second years, and I think it's really sad to think about the fact that they'll be their respective setters will be playing a full year without them, because unlike with Seijo, where obviously Iwaizumi and Oikawa are now not in the volleyball team because they are third years and they lost their last tournament, at least one of them won't be left on the team without the other. And I do think it is confirmed that they'll go to separate universities, but I don't think it's too, like, as bad as when, because Kuro and Kenma, for example, they are childhood friends, and Kenma has, like, he has made friends on the volleyball team, but he's the closest to Kuro, and I think it'll be really sad for him when Kuro leaves. So yeah. Either way, what was my point with this? Yeah, my point with this was that the team that will go up against it is a team that has been mentioned before, but it will not be one of the like main teams or a team that has been hyped a lot. I could be wrong about this, but it's basically because I don't think that in the first round we'll see a team we either know a lot of or a team that has been hyped up a lot lose, and I do think that Karasuno will win the first round at the very least. Because again, at this point, it's just we've spent so much time between the Shiratorizawa final and this first round of the actual tournament for them to just lose the first tournament or the first round in the tournament. So yeah, I don't think it'll be one of those teams I mentioned before. I feel like I might have forgotten something, but my brain is pretty dead, as I told you before about the One Piece thing. So yeah, I will end the review here, and we can always start discussion in the comment section below if you feel like I left something out, or if you just disagree with me on something. If you have any idea as to who the team will be up against in the first round is, then feel free to leave your suggestions. And yeah, so yeah, if you liked anything that I had to say, please leave a thumbs up in the video. Leave in the comments below what you thought of the chapter and all the things I just said, and you can subscribe if you want to see more. I also do reviews of One Piece, Yokai no Soma, Boku no Hero Academia, and I do weekly videos on Haikyuu the anime and One Piece the anime. So if you're into those, you can subscribe, and until next time, bye!